Hello knitters! Today, at the request of one of our fellow knitters, I'm going to be teaching you how to pick up stitches along your knitted piece. I'm going to start by picking up along the cast on edge. This is considered picking up and knitting versus just picking up. Back before sliced bread, when I first learned how to knit, we used to just pick up stitches. You didn't actually knit them at the same time. We've since learned that picking up and knitting is better. So for the most part, that's what we do. Every once in a great while, especially if you're knitting on a felted bag, sometimes you'll be asked to just pick up. That's another day. So we're going to begin with picking up along the cast on edge. My piece is upside down, so my cast on edge is actually this edge here. And if you look, you can see there's a V there. There's a V here, a V here. We're going to be picking up into those V's. So we are going to take our needle and go from front to back right into the middle of that V. It's the one right there below the very edge. I'm going straight in. Don't try to grab anything. Don't try to get fancy. Just go straight in. Wrap your yarn around the needle as though you're knitting, because you technically are. That's why we call it pick up and knit. And then withdraw through the stitch like it's a stitch on a needle. And there's our first picked up stitch. Next we have a little tiny hole here. I don't know if you can see that little tiny TP looking stitch. That is not where we're going in. That's the in between the stitches, so we're going to skip that. If you go there, you get a mistake. So we're going to go right into the V again. Wrap it like we're knitting, because we are, and draw it through. And again. And once again into the V. If you are a continental knitter, the process is the same. I am not a continental knitter, so it doesn't always look as smooth as when I knit English, but you'll get the idea. Into the stitch, wrap the needle, and withdraw. Yeah, I had to cheat there. I know you caught it. That's okay. Like I said, I'm not a continental knitter. It takes me a minute to get there. Into the stitch, wrap it, and withdraw it. See that? Now I've got it right. Into the stitch, wrap it, and withdraw it. There we go. Okay, so that being said, I want to just show you a couple common errors, because I think you learn better if you can see what you did. And if you see me do it, it might just kind of help you hit it home a little bit. Okay, so what I did was I just picked up a few more real quick. This one here is right up at the center of a V. This one here, uh-oh, he's at the center of the TP that I told you not to pick up into. So I'm going to just take these out, pull my yarn, and voila, it's gone. Okay, so I'm going to take a break for just a second, finish picking up along this edge so that we can continue up the side, and we'll be back in just a brief moment. Okay, I have finished picking up along the bottom edge, and now I'm going to turn and come up this side edge. Finding where to pick up is usually the hardest part. So what I do is, instead of trying to identify the edge stitch, which is difficult at best because it's hard to see all of it, I find the second stitch in. So I am looking at this V here, this V here, this V here. What I want to do is pick up right along this line. So I'm going to turn my piece sideways, because I'm always picking up from right to left and always with the right side facing. And I am going to go into the first hole right next to that column of stitches, and I'm going to pick up just as we were doing before. Typically, a pattern will tell you to pick up X number of stitches. So that's a mathematical formula that they've done, but it very frequently works out to 3 out of 4. So 3 rows out of 4 rows. So we pick up 3, and then what we would do is we'd skip this next hole here and go into this one here. And we do that all the way up. Now you may find that that doesn't work out. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on the formula. It's all based on gauge. So what I would recommend is, if you have a specific number of stitches that you have to cast on, say you have 100 stitches to cast on, take your piece, fold it in half, and put a removable stitch marker, a locking stitch marker, at the halfway point. Then take each half and fold it in half and put a locking stitch marker at those points. You now have a piece that's evenly divided into 4 sections, and you can pick up 25 in each section. Then you know that if you get to the marker and you've been doing 3 out of 4 and you don't have 25 stitches, you have to adjust that. We frequently have to adjust. Sometimes it's pick up 2, skip 1, pick up 3, skip 1. Sometimes it's pick up 4 out of 5. It just depends. Don't be afraid to change it. You just want them evenly. Also, your directions will always say pick up so many stitches evenly spaced. That means don't pick up 25 and then have a big old gap here because you have all this extra space. They want you to space it out so it looks good. That should go without saying, but you would be surprised. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to finish picking these up here. It'll just take me a second, and then we're going to show you how to pick up into garter stitch, which is a little different, a little harder to see, but sometimes a lot easier too, depending on the project. We'll see you back in just a minute. Okay, so I'm back. I have finished picking up my stitches along the stockinette edge, and I want to make sure that you can see something. If you look here, see how nice and straight this line here is? So if I had picked up wrong, I would have a little black line coming down here or a little black line going up, but this line would not be straight. If you pick up your stitches and you do not have a straight line, please rip it out. Please, this is the difference between something that looks professional and something that looks like a beginner. And I don't want you to look like a beginner did it. Even if you're a beginner, you can look professional. So we're going to move on to picking up in garter stitch. So garter stitch is knitting every row. If you're in the round, it's knit a row, knit around, purl around, sorry. So I'm going to continue up the line, but what's interesting about garter stitch is that there's technically 2 places to pick up. So I could pick up here, or I could pick up here between every set of ridges. So picking up stitches is a little bit different in garter stitch. You're going to do it the same, but spacing them is different. It takes twice as many rows of garter stitch to make an inch as it does stockinette stitch. So our ratios are usually different when we're picking up in garter. Generally speaking, we'll pick up 1 stitch in between 2 ridges. When they tell you that, you can pick up either space. You should be consistent, so you can either pick up here or here. I happen to like the second one. I can't explain why, but I happen to like the second one. I tend to always go with that one. So I'm just going to go in there. Once again, you'll notice that every time my needle goes in, I have 2 strands from my piece that are over the top of my needle. Just like so. And there we have it. So when we get to the top of the piece, picking up along the bind off is the same as picking up along the cast on. You're picking up into the V's. There's nothing different there. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments. Hit the subscribe button if you want to be alerted when more videos come out. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Happy knitting!